Welcome to the Butterfly Effect. I'm Chris Horner. This is stage 14 of the 2023 Vuelta a España. Today's stage is another mountain day for us fans of the Vuelta a España sitting on the Chesterfield, and today's stage at 156 kilometers with 4 categorized climbs on today's stage. And coming in the second half, that means the first half is flat, about 50K flat, just a little bit there over. Then it's going to start climbing, and the first climb's an especial climb. That means it's overrated. It's the highest rating they can possibly give in the Grand Tour rating, so it's a big monster climb. We're talking about 15-kilometer especial climbs, 11-kilometer special climbs. Then they have a Category 3 climb that's going to be the penultimate little bump. Then you have a Category 1 up to the finish of today's 156-kilometer stage. Now, we saw yesterday Remco Evenepoel lost a ton of time, over 20 minutes, on all the general classifications favorites. When they finished yesterday, stage 13, he blew up. And when you start hearing the commentators talking about always knowing what the riders, how they look and how they feel, so they always know exactly what to expect out of riders because they're used to watching them race throughout the season. When the racing starts here at kilometer 0 and we start seeing big time attacks, and it's Lotto Destiny going up the front there, that's Thomas de Hint, he's attacking. The next attack's going to be Remco Evenepoel. Okay, Remco blew up yesterday, right? Well, why did he blow up yesterday? They said he wasn't sick, but sitting up here on the podium of the Butterfly Effect, you got to be sick or there has to be a reason for it. It's not just that it's late in the season and you have a day like yesterday where you blow up and you get dropped by 50, 60 guys. You get dropped by 3, you get dropped by 5, you get dropped by 10 guys, you lose a minute or 2. That's no big deal. That could be anything. Small amount of calories that you were off, some kind of just, you didn't rest enough the day before, you're a little stressed out and the body just felt the stress and finally took a little bit of that top end form from you. But when you blow like Remco Evenepoel did on yesterday's stage 13 of the Vuelta, you know there's something wrong. They might not know what it is. Remco Evenepoel might not know what it is because he's only 23 years of age. Doesn't have a whole ton of experience when we're talking about Grand Tour experience. So he might not know what it is. But it's got to be some kind of little sickness bug or some kind of medication. Now, if you guys remember right, I spent a ton of time at this year's Tour de France on the Butterfly Effect in 2023 talking about Tadej Pogačar when he exploded on stage 17. This is this exact same scenario. So when you hear the GCN commentators talking about how, oh man, it's unbelievable like how you can be bad and then be attacking like here today on the very next day after. Well, that's the same scenario that Tadej Pogačar had. And if you remember right, Tadej Pogačar, UAE team Emirates, had some sickness going through their camp early in the Tour de France. And if you remember right, here at the Vuelta a España, just a couple months after the 23 Tour de France finish, there was some sickness going through Soudal Quickstep's camp too. So maybe Remco Evenepoel had some antibiotics or some kind of meds to help with those sickness, and that's normally what I would see be causing the body to completely shut down and be all blocked up where you get dropped on yesterday's stage 13 like Remco. But just like I told you at the Tour de France with Tadej Pogačar, if he comes back good, which he did because he came back and won a stage at the Tour de France before it was all said and done and won it in spectacular style. Now when we're watching the first attack right here at just over 150 kilometers to go in today's stage by Remco Evenepoel attacking and looking solid, you're thinking, wow, maybe he's feeling better. Well, one attack doesn't tell you much, right? Well, the second attack when he's up the road again with Thomas de Hint for his second attack, now you're starting to think, well, maybe he is a little bit better. The third attack from Remco Evenepoel, that one's looking pretty impressive, but it's getting pulled back too. The fourth attack from Remco Evenepoel, that one looked pretty solid and had solid numbers of riders, but it gets pulled back. It's going to take to about 125 kilometers to go. Remco Evenepoel's going to throw in his fifth attack early here in stage 14 of the Vuelta a España. Then look at the picture. They come through the roundabout. The peloton spread out like crazy, and Remco Evenepoel is driving it at the front of this group. 25, give or take, riders are going to be in this front group, and the number doesn't really matter because it's going to swell bigger and it's going to get smaller throughout today's stage. But keep in mind, about 25 guys are up at the front. Now we go back, just following behind that huge breakaway that Remco Evenepoel's pulling like a freight train with 0 Soudal Quickstep teammates in there. So it's all Remco going to work. Yes, some of the other guys are rotating through. Yes, they're knuckleheads for riding with Remco Evenepoel on this stage 14 when we know what kind of form the Belgian rider has, because if you don't know by the 5th attack that Remco Evenepoel is feeling back to normal here, well, you haven't been keeping an eye on Remco Evenepoel, and you should know at this point in time that after 4 big attacks, now the 5th attack, and the Belgian kid's still pulling on the front, we're 30 kilometers into it, and he still isn't fading. If I take you back to yesterday's stage, he faded about 30 kilometers into it, but now Remco Evenepoel's going full gas. Now, what's happening to the peloton behind? UAE Team Emirates, the knuckleheads missed the move. Now they're riding on the front. That's Rui Oliveira riding on the front. Why they're riding Rui Oliveira on the front? If I was Milano, their sprinter that's already won a stage here, the only rider for UAE Team Emirates that has won a stage, I'd be upset if it was Rui Oliveira, my only lead-out guy for the sprint stages on the front right now, pulling full gas. Well, Rui Oliveira's up there. He's looking left. He's looking right. He's got no teammates' help. We see some UAE teammate riders come to the front, come near the front, but not get on the front. Then he looks over to the left, and all of a sudden we see it's AG2R coming to the front. That starts pulling with Rui Oliveira. He gets a little more help from one teammate, but we're 10 kilometers now past the time when that group of 25 riders went up the road. So we're talking about 112 kilometers to go in the stage, and you only got 3 riders at the front, and you got 25 in the breakaway up there with Remco Evenepoel, who's going ballistic on the pedals right now. Now, UAE team members are going to make some more mistakes. The road's going to spread wide back there, curb to curb for the peloton, and then we're going to start seeing some more attacks. We see 2 guys going up the road, and then there's 2 more chasing them. Who's that 3rd rider right there in the back chasing the 2 in front? Matteo Cattaneo from Soudal Quickstep. He's going full gas, and he's got Rui Oliveira on his wheel. Those 2 will burn it up to the next 2. Now 4 riders up there with about 102 kilometers to go, maybe just a hair under. Now we look further back in the peloton. What's happening? Look over to the right side. That's Finn Fisher Black, I believe it is, throwing in a huge attack through the gravel there. He gets a gap with EF Education, and then they're trying to bridge up to this group of 25 up the road that's being followed by Cattaneo, along with Rui Oliveira in that group of 4. Now the climb's going to start proper. We see Remco Evenepoel on the front. If you don't realize what's going on right now, you definitely are a knucklehead, because Remco Evenepoel's flying on the front, and he's pulling this group of 25 when the first climb especial starts here with just under 100 kilometers to go on stage 14 of the Vuelta España, with Remco Evenepoel pulling at the front. Look in the back. That's Caden Groves that made this front split, the sprinter and 2-time stage winner here at the Vuelta España, wearing the green jersey here as the sprint leader competition rider. He's coming out the back, and then look just in front of him, Matteo Cattaneo. He's passing the back guys that are getting dropped from this front group of 25 with the pace of Remco Evenepoel. Matteo Cattaneo, who dropped off the UAE Team Emirates back there, either they were called back or they got dropped and couldn't follow the speed of Matteo Cattaneo, because like I said, throughout this whole first 2 weeks of the Vuelta España, Cattaneo's punching above his belt, that's for certain. He is riding magnificent. We see about 98 kilometers to go. Cattaneo's made it to the front of the group. Now we got Remco Evenepoel sitting second wheel, getting a free ride going up the first climb especial here on stage 14 of the Vuelta España. Let's go back to the peloton and see what some knuckleheads are doing back there, because it's UAE Team Emirates on the front. The 2 guys that tried to go with Matteo Cattaneo now dropped back, and we see UAE Team Emirates trying to ride on the front. We got Dominique Novak on the front of the peloton back there trying to pull hard, and he's going against Matteo Cattaneo on the front. The gap has gone way up. We're talking about 4 minutes right now. So UAE Team Emirates at 3.5, 4 minutes behind that big group there, being led by Matteo Cattaneo with just Dominique Novak pulling. You can't imagine they're going to bring time down. So now we're going to find out exactly what the MO of Soudal Quickstep is. Well, they near the top of the first KOM. We're coming into about 500 meters to go. Remco Evenepoel lights it up, and everybody falls off the wheel except for one Frenchman. The Frenchman's name, Romain Bardet DSM. He's riding magnificent, following at 50 kilometers an hour plus. There was times it showed 60 on the attack there from Remco Evenepoel, but I'm going to assume the motorcycle was accelerating, and Remco Evenepoel was just doing about 51, 52 up to the top of this KOM. But that's 30 plus miles an hour, guys, over a climb that's called the Especial. He's going full gas. Now, we know he's feeling good. If you haven't figured it out from the first 4 attacks, and you didn't figure it out from the 5th attack that split it up to 25 guys, and you haven't figured figured it out now when he's doing 50 plus kilometers an hour going over the top of the KOM, winning maximum points. You definitely are a knucklehead. But Remco Evenepoel's going full gas. We see coming down the descent. Romain Bardet is locked onto his wheel. We'll see a little chit chat between the two of those guys, and later on I'll tell you what that meant, but not right now, because we see these two guys chatting, and then we see Remco Evenepoel and Romain Bardet doing big pulls through the valley behind what was left of that group of 25. Well, I told you they blew up all over the place coming up the Col de Special climb, the first big climb here on stage 14 of the Vuelta a España. Now coming down the descent, they got about a dozen riders. Matteo Cattaneo sitting last on that group there. As we see, Bahrain Victorious is pulling with one guy, not getting a ton of help. Now we're going to come into the second climb here on stage 14. It's another Special. I told you guys the first two ones were big, and Remco Evenepoel's pulling full gas on the front. We see Bardet. He's normally sitting on the wheel of Remco Evenepoel going up all of the climbs. Rightfully so, Romain Bardet is riding intelligently. He made the split over the first KOM down the descent. He's sitting on there of the wheel of Remco Evenepoel, not getting much of a draft because Remco Evenepoel definitely is aerodynamic, so you know Romain Bardet was suffering a little bit. But now going up the second climb here, he's sitting on Remco Evenepoel. That's blazing, and the time gap just keeps extending. Now we go back and look at what the peloton's doing. UAE team members are all over the front. They started this climb with 6 guys on the front, but it starts getting reduced and going back and down and down and down in numbers because we see Almeida and Soler swinging on the back. Now, once we see Finn Fisher-Black, he's the last UAE team member. It's right around the front for Ayuso. But you look at the back, man, Almeida's already come off the back. Soler's come off this back of about 30 riders, 25 maybe, and they fought their way to hold on and swing into the back of this group. And then after Finn Fisher finishes his pull on the front, Ayuso throws in a huge attack. It's a big one, but guess what? First, second, and third on the general classification are following the attack of Ayuso right away. And in the interview with Ayuso, if I take you back just a little bit, he said it's been frustrating when you're attacking and then all of a sudden Jumbo-Visma attack with one rider, then you attack trying to go across and you got a Jumbo-Visma rider on your wheel sitting getting a free ride while you're chasing a Jumbo-Visma rider. Well, that would be the same scenario right now. This is a ridiculous attack with about 55 thereabouts kilometers to go on today's stage. Ayuso attacks, like I said, first, second, third GC are on his wheel, and that's Sepp Kuss that's wearing the race leader's red jersey here. It's Jonas Vingegaard that's in the polka dot jersey, and Primoz Roglic is on the wheel. We look just behind, and it all comes back together as we see Ayuso sits up almost immediately. He throws in one more attack. Now he's got Primoz Roglic and Jonas Vingegaard on his wheel. Look down the hill just a little bit. There's only a 2-3 second gap to Enric Mas from Movistar, who's pulling along Sepp Kuss. So Jumbo-Visma's getting a free ride, and Sepp Kuss is getting a free ride, so 2 getting a free ride, 1 getting a free ride, but all of the competition's working for Jumbo-Visma. If I take you back to yesterday's stage when it finished and I was talking tactics, I told you guys this is what was going to happen with Jumbo-Visma. They basically have an almost free ride throughout the stages because other teams are going to have to work and attack them. But this is a knucklehead tactic from UAE team members, mainly because if I take you back to that first attack from Ayuso, look back as you see the second group back there. So you have Ayuso on the front, and then you look back, and that's Soler and Almeida and Finn Fisher-Black trying to come back up to this front group. So you have UAE team members on the front and UAE team members in the back trying to pull back the front group. It doesn't make any sense. They're all knuckleheads. It wasn't going to work. If, let's say, Ayuso has this magical form that we just didn't see coming, and he does drop everyone and we go over this Col de Special climb, what's going to happen? The 3 Jumbo-Visma riders, they're going to sit up, they're going to wait. Of course, they're for Walter and Hessink that's still back there, and those 2 guys are going to get on the front. Bahrain Victorious is going to get on the front and start pulling too. So you have no hope that this tactic was ever going to work. But UAE team members, man, did you guys waste some energy up to this point in time. And finally, UAE team members realize the mistake and they get off the front. But the mistake was being made so far back, they let Remco Evenepoel go up the road. Then they let Matteo Cattaneo, his teammate, go up the road, who drilled it on the first climb. Now they've worn out the legs of Ayuso. Soler's been off the back. Almeida's been hurting off the back. They have catastrophically made mistakes here, and they're big-time knuckleheads. Now, we're going to go over the top of the second Especial. Of course, Remco Evenepoel is going to take maximum KOM points, and Bardet is going to follow just behind the Belgian rider from Soudal Quickstep. They drop down the descent. We see the peloton behind as they're cresting the top of the KOM. They're 6 minutes back on the 2 leaders in front, and between the 2 guys in front, it's Michael Storer that went over for 3rd place points on the KOM here. Now they drop down in descent, they start the category 3. It's not a big climb at all, so of course we're going to see Remco Evenepoel pull all the way up the climb with a little help from Bardet, and again get maximum KOM points and put himself in the KOM jersey at the end of today's stage 14 of the Vuelta a España. But can he win stage 14 with Romain Bardet from DSM sitting on his wheel? Well, that's the big if right here on stage 14. But when we go back to the peloton, who's pulling now? It's Bahrain Victorious on the front. They're pulling full gas. Caruso's on the front. And let me remind you, Caruso was in that group of 25 and already got popped. Now he's in the back here at the peloton trying to pull full time up there for Landa, hoping to drop Soler, who was already swinging off the back from the ridiculous attacks from Ayuso going up the climb. Now guys, if you're Marc Soler, if you're Almeida, and the plan was to push the pace up the 2nd category special climb here with 60 kilometers to go, once you start hurting, you need to get on the radio and say, hey, director, we need a new plan. Let's wait for a different kind of stage. Let's not attack Sepp Kuss, Primoz Roglic, and Jonas Vingegaard on the biggest, hardest climbs there are. Let's wait for a medium mountain stage, or let's wait for a rolling stage, or let's watch Remco Evenepoel in these following stages and follow him all day long, and let Pseudo Quickstep do all the work while they're trying to get Remco Evenepoel in the front group. Nope, they went deep, now they're paying. Well, Bahrain Victorious is on the front. We see Soler, he's still in the group, and they can't go fast enough on the front to drop Marc Soler, but they are pulling Jumbo-Visma around, who's getting a free ride here on stage 14 of the Vuelta a España. Now it's 9.5 kilometers to go. We're going to see, as we hit the last and final category 1 climb here, we see a little bit of talk in there from Romain Bardet and Remco Evenepoel. I'm sure Romain Bardet is looking left over there at Remco Evenepoel as he's looking right at Romain Bardet, and Bardet's saying, man, we got an 8-minute gap here. I don't need to help you pull right now at this point in time. I can just sit on the wheel, because if I do help you pull, I'm probably going to get dropped. Well, Remco Evenepoel keeps pulling on the front, doing a steady tempo. Then with 3.9 kilometers to go, we see a little gap there from Bardet to Remco Evenepoel's wheel. Remco Evenepoel looks back. He sees the gap. Probably his director sportif told him in the radio, looks like something's wrong with Romain Bardet. Punch it. So Remco Evenepoel looks back, sees the gap, gets on the accelerator, punches it, and we see Romain Bardet come off. Now the Belgian rider from Pseudo Quickstep's going solo. He's looking spectacular. Do I need to remind you that he blew up in yesterday's stage 13? Everybody forgot it now because he's going full gas. As he gets up just about 2 kilometers to go, he's going to do another look back over his shoulder. He's going to look down at his power meter and keep pushing on the pedals. With the power that he's putting on the pedals, the gap there, the Romain Bardet is increasing. By the time we start getting up near the finish line, it's time for Remco Evenepoel to start celebrating, because he knows he's going to win solo here on stage 14. He crosses the line, arms all the way wide out, and all the way as far as he can get it, as he's going to celebrate his 2nd victory here for Pseudo Quickstep with the memories out the back and done forgotten of yesterday's 13 already the next day. Don't you love sports? One day it's a high, next day it's a low, another day it's a high. You don't know what's going to happen, but well, all we know right now is Remco Evenepoel Pseudo Quickstep was magnificent here on stage 14 of the Vuelta a España. 1 minute later, we're going to see Romain Bardet come across the line for 2nd on the stage. When we talk about Michael Storer, I told you he went over that category 3 in first, but he was getting caught from 2 guys behind, so it's Van Itveld that comes through for 3rd on today's stage. Michael Storer lose a little bit more time and finish 5th on the stage, but 4th is Jonathan Castroviejo, who finished with the Lotto Destiny rider just behind his wheel. That's the top 5 on the stage. Now let's go down and look at the GC and see if there's a battle coming up this last category 1 climb. As they started, we see it's Walter from Jumbo-Visma setting a steady pace on the front, stringing it out. He's bringing the numbers down to about 20 riders. Everything single file. We look at the back. Soler and Almeida are having a hard stage 14, but they're still locked on. And up front, we see Valters a pull all the way deep into this category 1 climb here until all of a sudden it's Wout Poels that takes over, setting a steady tempo. We look at the back of the group now, and we still see it's the same guys back there, Soler and Almeida, who are struggling. Now we come up to about 2 kilometers to go, just there under. There's going to be a soldier on the right side walking up, the left side of the road, and there's going to be a soldier walking up the road. He's not even going to turn his back because he's too big and tough to worry about the bike race and anyone knocking him down that's riding a bicycle. So So he keeps walking, and luckily for all the riders in the race right here, the GC favorites to entertain us all sitting on the Chesterfield of the Vuelta a España, luckily they all just barely miss the soldier there walking on the left side of the road. He is the biggest knucklehead here on stage 14, but nobody goes down. They go into the finish with David de la Cruz, who jumped a little bit early, gets a little bit of gap, but gets wrapped up by the GC favorites, who finish 8 minutes down on Remco Evenepoel. Now, today's stage, top 10, no changes there, but was a magnificent stage for Pseudo Quickstep. Welcome back. You're only gone one day. But Remco Evenepoel clearly on fine form here when we're talking about the Vuelta a España. Now, what can you expect going forward? Tomorrow's a kind of a breakaway looking stage with only a Category 2 climb, if I remember right, about 100 miles in length, 160K if I'm not mistaken. So, if you're UAE team members, from now on coming through these stages, if you don't want to get stuck on the front pulling ridiculously like you did on today's stage, letting Catania go out of the break and bridge up to Remco Evenepoel and start pulling, man, was that a knucklehead move. Anyways, if you want to avoid that, follow Remco around everywhere. Most likely Pseudo Quickstep will control it all the way until you get into the big mountains. And then the problem is you probably can't follow Remco Evenepoel once you get on the bigger climbs, because nobody on your team, Ayuso included, maybe Ayuso could, but nobody else outside of Ayuso can follow Remco Evenepoel going up these climbs. But Pseudo Quickstep could be the team that really helps you put some pressure there on Jumbo-Visma, who've got a Cadillac ride all the way through this stage 14. And Sepp Kuss will continue to wear the race leader's red jersey here at the Vuelta a España. Jonas Vingegaard said in his interview, Sepp Kuss looks like he can win it, and I gotta agree. Sepp Kuss, the American rider, looks like he could become the second American to win the Vuelta a España after what I saw in yesterday's stage 13 and here on stage 14. Sepp, you were magnificent. Tactically, you look spot on throughout the races, and you have looked spot on ever since you started racing at the front while wearing the race leader's red jersey. Congratulations, Sepp Kuss, Remco Evenepoel. Whew, that was impressive. I loved watching it from the Chesterfield. Like and subscribe. I'll see you guys on the next stage real soon.